We are all right, JJ. You screwed this up. Hey, we're almost ready for spring training. JJ, are you ready for spring training?
Am I ready for spring training? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yes, the answer is yes.
Did you watch the Super Bowl?
Yes, I kind of boycotted football for a while, but it was just yes, I did watch the Super Bowl. I enjoyed it. It was great.
You know what the Super Bowl means?
It means the end of the football season, the
That's right.
beginning of the baseball season.
Yeah, I do like it now that the Super Bowl, they've added the extra week and they added a week of I guess they did this about 15 years ago, an off week for the NFL. So now the Super Bowl is right before spring training. So that just works out cool. Let's get some business taken care of. I do want to remind you to like us on Facebook. You can contact us through one card, one cup, one beer at gmail.com. Support our efforts through Patreon. Just go to patreon.com, search for one Cardinal, one cup, and one beer, and you can support our efforts for as little as $3 a month. What can you do for $3 a month?
I can't think
support
of
anything. Patreon. That's about it.
Oh,
that's about it. So we have a new Cubbie for Guess the Cubbie. This gentleman behind me, last week, nobody got it right. And I have two guys who have gotten every one of them right. Mark Marianello.
very
I
good.
hope I'm pronouncing that right. He told me I'm pronouncing it right. He's got it right 6 times, and Mike Buchanan has beat him to the punch only once. But Mike Buchanan has every week that Mark has got it right has been second coming in saying this is the player. Well, last week I stumped them both, and I stumped everyone else, and that was my goal. My goal was to finally come up with someone that no one knew who he was.
I didn't know.
Max Planck, outfielder for the Cubs in the teens and 20s.
Wow.
Was our player last week. So far, Mark Marianello has 6 tallies. Tom Maget has 2. Cooter Lev and Mike Buchanan each have 1. Remember, you are collecting tallies, and the person with the most tallies at the end of spring training will win a prize package of a lot of our merch, and they will also get 2 tickets to a game of their choice. So that's pretty cool. If you want to be a contestant on one of our trivia contests, if you want to be a guest on a panel, if you are a person who has some sort of an interesting connection to baseball that would make a good story, we want to hear from you so you can be on the show, tell us your story, be on a panel, try to beat us in trivia, which nobody's done so far, and drop us an email, DM one of us, leave a comment somewhere, let us know, hey, I'd like to be on, because we love to have our faithful listeners and watchers be our guest. So JJ, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm calling you out, Vince. Vince is the patron saint of merch. He's a nice guy. Love this guy. And tonight I am donning a one original shirt that he had made for me. I'm a big Enos Slaughter fan, and this is the Mad Dash from the 1946 World Series where the Cardinals beat the Red Sox. And there's Enos Slaughter. I do not know the umpire's name, and that's Marty Marion on the on-deck circle. So thank you very much, Vince. I'm wearing this. I love it.
So the umpire's Country Joe West.
Is it? He was around for a long time. I'm telling you.
He's 4 years old there.
Man, I tell you what, with spring training coming up, I got a thing with numbers, all the numbers of all the pitchers and catchers, the players are showing up, the cactus and the grapefruit league, the start of the season. I got all the dates, and I believe we're 44. I'll call that, when we're 44 away from anything, I call that Reggie Jackson. We're 44 away from opening day. And I tell you what, I feel a little bit better. Driving home tonight, the days are getting a little bit longer. I had the MLB channel on the radio listening to all kinds of good stuff. And it's starting to happen. It's starting to, and there's still a lot of free agents out there. So that part is not over. We've had a contest, Vince, for a while of name the free agents. We had 5 of the top free agents, and there's 2 that haven't signed yet. So our contest sort of stalled right there. And we have about 4 people that could win the thing, depending on where Bellinger and Snell go. So that'll be interesting. Still, I haven't heard anything. Have you on where they're going to end up?
The rumor is, well, I will address Snell first. I think the asking price the Boris has is way too high for a guy who can only give you 5 innings. And I was listening to a podcast that broke it down this way. Being Snell is a 5 inning pitcher. That's all he is. He throws too many balls. He walks too many people. He doesn't have enough pitches in his arm to get into the 6th inning. So he's a 5 inning pitcher. On a good day, he can get into the 6th inning, but basically he's a 5 inning pitcher. So if you get Snell and you break the bank with that, you have to add a little bit of depth to your bullpen who can handle that extra inning 32 times a year that he's not going to give you. And that doesn't count the times where he's going to be knocked out early, because there's going to be games with Snell. Blake Snell just has blow up games. An inning and a third, 4 walks, 3 hits, and he's gone. So you have to supplement what he's not going to give you with extra bullpen help, a veteran who's going to cost you some money. And that's maybe why Snell is not, I haven't heard anybody that's really interested. I know the Yankees inquired, and they gave their price, and they said, no, thank you. And that's when the Yankees went and got Marcus Stroman. So that could be an issue. I personally do not want Snell on the Cubs, even if he comes at a bargain basement price, because I'm just the kind of fan, I cannot stand watching someone just walk so many people. So when he's on, he's excellent. But even when he's on, he's going to have his walks. He's going to have a lot of walks, and he has trouble getting past the 5th inning. So that's what I think is going on with Snell, is that there's just a lot of people who say they don't look, he's an ace, but he's not a workhorse, if you know what I mean.
Right. Right.
Garrett Cole is a workhorse. He's going to get you 7 innings, get into the 8th, and he's going to throw the ball over the plate most of the time. Snell's not a workhorse. He's a great pitcher, but he's not a workhorse. And I don't think teams want to pay him what they're paying a workhorse. With Bellinger, I just think that Bellinger's previous years of injury and inefficiency have scared people. And another stat, that a sabermetric thing that people keep pointing to, is that his exit velocity was not great at all. I don't mind it, because I watched him with 2 strikes shorten up, hit a little 72-mile-an-hour line drive to left field to drive in a couple of runs. That's old school hitting. But of course, in today's day, you have to have that high exit velocity, and he doesn't have that anymore. That's probably one of the reasons why he slumped for a couple of years so bad, is after the injury, he was trying to just cream the ball. And so he had to retool his swing, retool his approach, and it worked last year. Is he going to get $200 million? I don't think so. I think the Cubs have a price, and they're not going to budge from it. But I do think the Cubs and the Blue Jays are the only teams that are left that are in on him. And I don't know how strong the Blue Jays are on him, because they've got first base covered and they've got center field covered.
Yeah.
And you look at, the Giants, people had him linked to the Giants. Well, they just ain't Soler for, I think, 4 years. So I almost think that halfway through spring training, he's just going to, by default, go to a team maybe the Cubs for, instead of 200 million for 7 years or whatever he's asking for, maybe for like 140 million for I don't know, 6 years, maybe even less. The Cubs are banking that Pete Crow Armstrong is going to be a star in the future, and they don't want to commit a whole lot to Bellinger. And I'm going to get to this when I get to the Cubs, but a
Okay.
little hint of what I'm going to be talking about. Um, they also like what they have coming up at first base. They like Mike Bush, who they got from the Dodgers. The Dodgers love Mike Bush. He just had nowhere to play him. And what more can he do? Keep going to AAA and tearing things up? No, this is his shot. If Mike Bush doesn't work out, who did they got? They got Matt Mervis. They've got Casey Owen or Owen Casey. Yeah, I hate it when someone has two last names. But they've got players in place that they feel like are going to be legitimate MLB producers at first base and at center field. So that's just a little teaser what I'm going to get into a little bit with the Cubs and talk about. But that's my take on those two guys.
You
Now,
do you do you think I seen this happen more in later years where the player doesn't get exactly what he wants, so he'll take a 1 year deal, a good amount, and for quite a bit, and sometimes even a team like Kansas City or Oakland will take a chance, and if they're out of it, which they usually are, they can move them at the All-Star at the trading deadline and get some prospects, and then that guy can go to winter, and then next year be a free agent again. I remember, oh, Kansas City did it with the reliever that throws 103 miles an hour, and then they moved him and got some prospects, and they keep building. Matt Holliday, I believe, went out to Oakland, and that's where the Cardinals got him. He was out there, and at the trade deadline, we picked him up, and it worked out for everybody. And they got, I think we stole Matt Holliday from him, but they got some prospects for him. So maybe that's what they're going to do, a 1 year big mega deal for 1 year, and they'll go back out there. Trevor Bauer, his name's been mentioned too. He was always a guy that would sign a short contract, go back out and bet on himself and get a contract depending on how well he did the year before. And he had some down years, but I saw some statistics of Snell and Bauer, their careers, and they're pretty even type pitchers. I mean, Bauer struck out more, had more innings, but Snell's ERA was lower. So anyway, I know Bauer's out there. He mentioned he'd like to play for the Cardinals. That doesn't look like that's going to happen. I know he'd like to get back into baseball. And Vince, I really don't know the whole deal. It seems like there was some money exchanged, but there's other people that came out. So I don't know if we'll ever see Trevor Bauer back in the big leagues, but his name's out there too.
before I discuss Bauer, I do want to discuss like a 1 year contract for Bellinger.
Yeah.
That's what he did last year for the Cubs. He's not going to do it
Oh,
again
he's not going to do it again.
because
Okay.
if he signs another 1 year contract and then he falls apart, he has no value. This is where he's got to say, that's what I did. I want so many years. He's even if he doesn't get what he's asking for, he needs to get the security now. Because if he does take another 1 year contract to prove himself again, and he goes back to hitting 179 with 18 home runs and 41 RBIs and an OPS of 600 or whatever, his no one's going to want him. So
That's
I
true.
I think he will sign a reduced contract from what he's asking for, um, just to get the security. Because let's say he signs for 1 year for 25 million, and the Cubs offer him, 4 years for 120 million or something like that. 120 million is more money than 25 million. That's going to be money that he's going to have. But I do have talking about Trevor Bauer in my notes because he did say that he would like to pitch for the Cardinals. He said he would like to pitch for the Red Sox. He'd like to pitch for anybody, and he said he's willing to do it for league minimum with incentives in his contract. Now, Bauer was a good pitcher in Cleveland,
Yes, it was.
and he criticized pitchers for using, specifically kind of Garrett Cole, for using that spider tack. Spider tack, was that what it was called?
I believe so. Yes. What weightlifters use?
Yeah, yeah, and getting the better grip on the ball. And he even said if I used it, I would strike out everybody, something like that. So we went to the went to the Reds and started using it because everybody else was. And he proved himself. Lights out with this stuff. Nobody can hit me. Went to the Dodgers. Then they cracked down on it, and then his life kind of fell apart with the accusations and all that stuff. I want to address two things. Number one, as a baseball player, he is doesn't have very many friends in baseball, but he does count Sonny Gray as one of his friends because they pitched together in Cincinnati. So they know each other, and apparently they have a pretty good relationship. But that's an anomaly. Most baseball players don't like him, and he is a different character. Um, his personality is quirky. He's probably a little bit on the spectrum. Um, and he throws fits, gets taken out of the game and hurls the ball into the outfield stands.
Remember that.
There are things that I like about him. I do like the showmanship. I like the putting the sword back in that. And one of my favorite things that I've seen in baseball, probably in the past 10 years, one of my favorite confrontations was a game where they're playing the Padres, and he struck out Tatis and did the thing. And then the next at bat, Tatis hit the home run and did his little strut around the base. And they kind of played off each other. It wasn't angry or anything like that. It was good showmanship. And I know a lot of old school people don't like that, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So if you get Trevor Bauer on your team, you are going to get someone who is just going to rub people the wrong way. He's saying all the right things now, and he's saying it in the right tone. He sounds very contrite. So, but I'm not going to question the guy's sincerity. Um, I honestly believe he's probably thinking, man, I've learned a lot. I could do this better. Um, as far as the personal thing goes, um, I'm I'm in his camp now. I do believe that he was set up, and you can go on YouTube and you can look at a lot of different videos on this. That woman who made these accusations is not uh, a very nice character. I'll just put it at that. And the videos from the morning after, she doesn't have bruises. She's not swollen. She's just laying there in bed with him. Um, so I do think that there was a setup there. I could be wrong, but as from what I see, I think he was set up. He had a good season in Japan. Wasn't great, but he had a good season in Japan, which, you're going to Japan, you're throwing a baseball that's a little bit smaller. You're pitching once a week as opposed to every fifth day. It's a whole different setup. Whereas Japanese pitchers come here and they have to have an adjustment period. Uh, Pitchers from the States, when they go to Japan or Korea, there's an adjustment period there too. With that adjustment period, he still had a good year. It's like Kota Senga last year. For the first month was like the worst pitcher in the National League. For the rest of the time, he was a Cy Young Award candidate. So there is that adjustment period that he seemed to overcome when he was there. I hate to say this. I don't want to see him on the Cubs, but I do hope someone takes a look at him. We've seen worse people continue to work in sports. Not as much as baseball, but basketball and football. There are some unsavory characters that keep getting jobs, and I think Trevor Bauer would be someone that I would like to see get a second chance because I kind of like that. I like a good redemption story.
I do too.
Don't want to see him with the Cubs because I don't want us to take that risk with such a young team with a lot of potential.
I
So
see.
maybe halfway through the season, the Yankees are 6, 7 games out. They say, okay, let's take a shot at him. Then I could see that happening. What do you think? Do you want him on your team?
I'm like you. He's been out of baseball for like 2 years. That's a stiff penalty. And things did not look up and up, like you said, with the video of the lady and everything. And they settled, she settled, is what I read. And I believe he deserves a second chance. It's like a 2 year suspension. Uh, I would, if he came back into the league, I'm sure there would be special rules just for him to follow. And he has everything I would think he would be on his very best behavior because he wants to prove. I mean, I don't know what else he could do but play baseball. He's played baseball his whole life, and it's been kind of taken away from him. So I'm sure he would come out and do everything he could to be on the straight and narrow and still have a career. So being on the Cardinals, if they seem if they interviewed him, talked to him, set up some sort of parameters, and he wanted to be on our team, I think he'd make our team better, and I wouldn't mind. But if he got out of line, you got to get rid of the guy.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think he makes sense for the Cardinals because the Cardinals are a veteran team, and that's where I think he needs to go. I'm just saying for the Cubs, the way
yeah,
we're built right now, I don't think that's a good fit. When he, said that, I'd like to play for the Cardinals, that, he's tight with Sonny Gray and everything. I thought if I was Mozeliak, I would say, come to camp. Let's see what you got.
yeah,
Um,
and
yeah,
Sonny
there's
Gray's
been,
got. I hear Sonny Gray's a everything I hear about him. He's a really upstanding guy, and I know. Remember Josh Hamilton? He kind of
yeah,
had a lot of demons, and they had like I won't say. I think his father, or he had I don't want to say a babysitter, but he had someone go with him and just
a
his
handler.
preacher. Yeah, a handler. Very good. That's a good word. But like a handler, just kind of, hey, we're not going to go out. We're going to do this and we're going to stay on the straight and narrow. And maybe Sonny Gray could be that guy, or, I think it was Josh Hamilton's pastor that went with him. But anyway, maybe that could be the idea, to help him out. Because I tell you what, he's a talented guy and he's had a nice career. He's had some real ups and some downs on the field. And if baseball had continued, the Cardinals could have never afforded him. He was up there in that rarefied air with the top 7, 8 teams. So would he make our team better? Yes. And I think uh, Kyle Gibson and Sonny Gray are two just top-notch guys. To be around. I think that would be good for him, and us. So come on,
Yeah,
I'd like to see it happen. That's my
yeah.
answer to the question.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm not a huge fan of Gibson and Lynn being the two acquisitions, two guys pushing in their late 30s, pushing 40, who are clearly on a downward trajectory. Um, you got Sonny Gray and then the rest right now. And I think if you had um, Trevor Bauer as your number two, and then you
Miles,
got a solid number three, I don't know. Stephen Matz had some periods last year where he pitched really good. He
he
could be
always gets
maybe,
hurt. He always gets when he finds it. It seems like it's like for like a half a month, and then he gets hurt. The 2 years
yeah,
he's been here, he's been hurt and deal with injuries. I still think he's a lefty. That lefties, we always give them a little more chance. But Michael is too. And St. Louis is a pitcher's park. Even Lynn's big bugaboo, he'll give you innings, but he gives up some home runs. If he can give up a couple solo blasts and go 6 innings, with 3 runs, I'll be happy with that. But last year was definitely a down year for him, but he picked up a little bit better when he was with the Dodgers. But I think me and you could pitch for the Dodgers and do a little bit better with that team.
yeah. I don't know if you saw this, but this came through the wire today that uh, Jenny Kavner who has done work for the Oakland Athletics for 15 years or so.
Okay.
She's been promoted to the primary play-by-play announcer.
Oh, very
Um,
good.
so this is the first female to be the primary play-by-play announcer for a team. The shame is she's going to announce for a team that nobody's watching. But I do like with Oakland, if you got MLB.TV, watch a few Oakland games they're broadcast. Dallas Braden is awesome. He is awesome. So I think it's going to be fascinating to listen to her and Dallas Braden do the games. So I'll listen a few times to her. I've never heard her, but yeah, she's been in the game for 20 years.
She
She
earned her.
certainly earned her stripes, so that's pretty cool. So
That's cool. Very good. You know, Vince, it's the spring training about to start, but a lot of veterans that's been around the league a long time have announced their retirements. I don't know if they went out, was trying to get ready for the new season and nobody had any interest, or they just decided they didn't have it anymore. But Corey Kluber hung it up. And I mean, he pitched from '05 to 23 and a couple of Cy Youngs. I always think him with the Cleveland team. He played there for 10 years and he had a nice career and was still out there pitching. I would see his name every once in a while. I hadn't really kept up with him. But at one time, he was an ace of the staff. Well, Cy Young, two Cy Youngs.
yeah,
Uh, um, let's see. Also, there's just a couple other ones. Tommy Hunter, who was a pitcher. I think of him with Baltimore. He played from '06 to 23. Ian Kennedy, I know he bounced around a lot there at the end of his career, but he was a Yankee. But I know he played 5 years with Arizona as well, and he's hanging it up. Um,
now
oh,
Kennedy, I swear, has been pitching since about 1984.
I know. Every time I turn around, he's still on it. He makes another team or somebody picks him up at a trading deadline. You're right, Vince. Long time. What was that? '07 to 2023 he pitched.
It seems longer than that.
It sure
So
does. It sure
yeah.
does. I guess he came up as a young man. Colin McHugh, I always think of him as a Houston Astro. He pitched 6 years there, bounced around a little bit. 2012, I thought he came up earlier than that to 2023. And I can't say this guy. He was a shortstop. His name was Andrelton Simmons.
Andrelton Simmons, yeah.
I have trouble with names. He
Played
played
for the
6 years.
Cubs a few years ago.
Did he not? He also was with the Angels and Atlanta for 6 years. And was he with the Cubs after Atlanta, or was it?
Yeah, he was with the Cubs 2 or 3 years ago. Um,
Great fielder.
they cut him. I don't know. Seems like it was like 6, 8 weeks into the season. Um, very little offense.
That
But
that was his bugaboo. Great fielder, not much of a bat, and but I tell you what, he was around from 2010 to 2023. Nice career. And I always think of him as a slick fielder. And there was talk a couple of years where the Cardinals were going to go get him when we had an injury or the shortstop position was kind of up for grabs, and he never did come to St. Louis. So anyway, that's a few of them. And Jeff Nelson, there was a reliever, or I'm sorry, an umpire. I want to salute the umpires out there. It's kind of a thankless job. 27 years in the big leagues and 4 World Series, and he's retiring this year. So you don't hear much about the umpires. So that's one of the news stories too.
as you shouldn't. If they're doing their job, you shouldn't even know who they are. So
That's right. I know who Angel Hernandez is. I know
I know
this.
who
Everybody
Angel
knows.
Hernandez, Stevie Buckner. I know them.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Eric
Uh,
Gregg. I will always know Eric Gregg for that playoff game, the Marlins against the Braves, and he started calling anything that was between home plate and first base a strike.
oh, I remember that.
Levi Hernandez pitching and struck out like 13, and Hernandez wasn't even a strikeout pitcher, and he was just calling. I, I don't know. I don't know what was up with him that day,
well,
but he was
I'm a
calling the
fat
strike
man.
so confidently too. And the Braves are like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, well, I believe he was too out of shape there at the end. I know he had an incident in Cincinnati on a 100-degree day where I think he had some sort of heart attack or something like that. They had to come off the field, but there should be some sort of weight limit. I'm a fat man. I know it. I should be out there in 100 degrees in that helmet, that mask, and the chest protector and all that. But yeah, I remember him very well. And Country Joe West too. That's a name I remember.
Remember when John McSherry opening day in Cincinnati had a heart attack and died on the field?
No, I don't remember that. I'll be honest with you.
It's about 20 years ago. Game in Cincinnati, I think at the old stadium. John McSherry was a big guy, and it was opening day, and it was between innings, and he wasn't feeling good. He was started walking towards the gate and had a heart attack and died. So
I know Matheny had a problem. I remember watching a game where the umpire was just laying on Matheny, and Matheny was like, "Hey, get off me!" And they had words, and Matheny got thrown out of the game, and Matheny didn't get thrown out of many games, and it was just a big umpire who was, I guess, having trouble that day and just leaning on the catcher, you know. So I've seen a few.
Isn't that what the catcher's for, to lean on?
Yeah,
for big umpire.
Set your drink on his head. Yeah, of course.
Anyway, transactions this week. Vladimir Guerrero won his arbitration case, which I kind of was surprised because his peripherals weren't great last year. So I kind of thought that may get a little nasty and he'd lose, but he won it. The Twins signed Carlos Santana to a 1-year contract, add a little thump to their lineup, and they needed it. And they trade outfielder Nick Gordon to Miami for right-handed pitcher Steven Okert. So Twins are a little busy this week. Brewers signed Gary Sanchez to a 1-year contract. So backup catcher. For the Dodgers, Dustin May is going to start on the 60-day IL. That's not good news for them, but hey, they got players growing on trees there. They also signed pitcher Ryan Brazier to a 2-year contract. I thought this was interesting. The Red Sox signed Michael Fulmer, who pitched for the Cubs last year and had flashes of being really good, but couldn't stay on the field because of injury. They signed him to a minor league contract. And the Padres signed Wandy Peralta to a 4-year contract. And they also signed Jerickson Profar to another year. So I guess the Padres are going to try to tread some water. The Pirates signed Yasmani Grandal to a 1-year contract. Nice to see he still got a job. Phil signed Spencer Turnbull to a 1-year contract. And the White Sox signed Dominic Leone to a minor league contract, and he pitched a couple seasons for the Cardinals, hard thrower. I shudder to say he's never reached his potential, but it just goes to show you used to be, if you threw in the mid upper 90s, you were a closer, period. No one could hit you. Now it's like, oh, you're just another pitcher. So I was surprised to see his career ERA is like in the mid 4s. I thought, gosh, that stuff, but it's a different world out there. So
I remember Adam Wainwright when he came up with the Cardinals. He was our hard thrower. He was like our 95, 96. And we were like, wow. Then as he became the veteran of the team, he threw the slowest. His velocity went down over years. He was throwing maybe 91, and we had Hicks and all these guys that were throwing 2 or 3 guys throwing triple digits. Carlos Martinez, the whole team threw over that. He goes, I wouldn't even have made the team when I came up because I threw so slow compared to everybody else. But I still say, Vince, the key to all this, it was almost like 100 miles an hour. You're on the team, but like you said, now there's still the art of pitching. You've got to be able to change speeds. These hitters are so good. They can, if that's all you got, they're going to set on it. And when it's going 100 miles an hour, it leaves the bat pretty fast. And that's why I like Greg Maddux. He was always one of my favorite pitchers. I don't know how hard he threw, but his balls dipped and rose and it changed speeds. And he'd hit the high inside corner and the low outside. Just, he'd make you look like a fool. And that's why I always liked the Greg Maddux, is he had the art of pitching down.
Yeah, and I don't know who originated this quote, but I've always loved this quote when I was a kid, that hitting is timing and pitching is upsetting the timing.
That's good.
And if you are upsetting the timing by throwing harder than everyone else, and that's just a way to upset the timing. But when you have so many staffs with 2, 3 people throwing 100 miles an hour, you're used to it. So when Chapman first came up, you couldn't hit him. He was throwing so hard. But then it got to the point where a lot of people were throwing that hard, and he was easier to hit. I mean, he's still an effective pitcher, but easier to hit. So um, you can throw as hard as you want, but you have to have a secondary pitch.
Right.
You know, with Chapman, it was a slider, and that's why he doesn't throw 105 anymore. He throws in the mid upper 90s, but he's still got the slider, which makes him an effective pitcher. So yeah, it's just if you can upset the timing, do the remember oh gosh, what was the name of the reliever that Houston had? Threw nothing but changeups. And it would be slow, slower, and slowest. Gosh.
John Tudor kind of got like that at the end of his career. He had some arm trouble, and he would just his fastball was like 80, but then his changeup was like 70, and he was just mess everybody's timing up, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I can't think of that Houston reliever though. That doesn't cross my mind.
And he was before Dave Smith. Oh well, I'm getting old. I don't remember things like I used to.
There's a
What's
lot
going
of
on?
players. Oh, and Cardinal news. Oh man, I tell you what, we're still, even with spring training just about here, we're really working on our bullpen, trying to get everything down. I mentioned the Trevor Bauer liking to pitch for the Cardinals. We'll see. Time will tell. Monday, the Cardinals signed a veteran reliever. Let's see, Jacob. I'm going to mess this name up. Boise, I can't say his name. He was an ex-Cardinal. He left for a year, and he's back with us this year. He was selected by the Rockies in 2016 and played 4 seasons in the minors. He played with Springfield and Memphis in 2021 and 22. And last year, he had an ERA of 5.27. I don't know. The Cardinals must have seen something they liked. That 5.27 does not sound very promising. But anyway, he's got a name I cannot pronounce. And I wish him all the luck. He's with us now. The Cardinals also took Garamio Zuniga, and we sent him to the California Anaheim Angels, I think is what they're known as now, for cash considerations. He became expendable when we got Kenya Middleton when he came to the team, and we have to have a 40-man roster for spring training, and he just was expendable. And Vince, I have trouble remembering options. You know, so many of these pitchers have, like, now, last year we were kind of stuck. A lot of our team, we didn't have, we ran out of options on a lot of them. Well, this year we got more play with the options. So a lot of guys who have options, probably no matter how good they pitch, the spring will probably end up in Memphis, because we can always bring them back up. Like Livator, even if he pitches lights out, he probably will be back in Memphis, because some of these other guys don't have any options. And I think there's 2 or 3 of those guys. So we're in a good place right now with our bullpen. We have a lot of guys that's been around who have been all-stars or had some very good years. And then we have some young guys coming up, and even guys who's never even been in the big leagues who are earning their keep down in the minors. Our AAA pitching staff could look fantastic down there. So when we do down on the farm this year, I think our pitching staff, one of the better pitching staffs we've ever had down in Memphis, because these guys are all about ready, just getting to Memphis, are about ready to come on up to the big leagues. So I think that's why we signed Lynn and Gibson to 1-year contracts, because a lot of these guys, I think, definitely will be ready next year. So that's some of the things going on in Cardinal land. Also, we have a few injuries and surgeries from players last year that missed the end of last year. And from everything I've read, they're all going to be ready for spring training. Dylan Carlson's one of those guys. He had an ankle injury, an oblique strain, and he should be ready for spring training. Brendan Donovan, a right elbow surgery. He missed, it seemed like about half the season last year. And what I heard today is he's got a very good shot at starting at second base. They want his bat in the lineup, and that Nolan Gorman may be the regular DH. I mean, he can move around too, but they would like Donovan to play second and Gorman to be the DH. And of course, anybody can DH, but that's kind of, I think, where they're going to put those guys at right now. That sounds good to me. And Edmund, who's also a second baseman, looks like he's going to get kind of the lead at center field at the moment, but we'll see. Other players that were hurt last year, Alec Burleson, a left thumb fracture, and he's ready. I think they're starting to call him Curly Burley. I don't know if that nickname's going to catch on, but Alec Burleson is ready to go. And I think this kid's the one that's going to make a big jump this year. He was a big time hitter down in the minors. And if he can get some semi-regular playing time, being the possible fourth or fifth outfielder, first baseman, DH, I think he's ready to make a big leap for the team. Well, Vince, the dates. These are the dates. Things happening. Everybody get ready. Pitchers and catchers for the Cardinals and the Cubs report February 14th. Oh, man. Oh, yeah. I see that smile on your face. This is just great news. The position players for both teams show up the same day, too, the 19th. So that's just, 5 days away. That's going to be fantastic. In 9 days, we kick off the spring training season, and the Dodgers and the Padres are going to start it all off. But the Cardinals and the Cubs do not start playing until February 23rd, which is 10 days away. That's it. So they get down there, they do some workouts. They're going to be starting the games. The Cubs start their spring training against the White Sox, their dreaded rival. And the Cardinals are having a split squad on the 24th. So that's when we start playing. And it'll be the Marlins and the Cardinals at Jupiter. And what I come to know is the veterans usually don't make any kind of long road trips. They usually stay right there. So all the young guys will be going up and playing the Mets that day on that split squad. We've got so many young players this year who are vying for position. Actually, I think our roster's pretty much set, Vince. We're going to be looking at a lot of players, but I really think our 24 positions are pretty much set in stone unless somebody gets hurt or somebody just comes out of nowhere and lights the place on fire. So anyway, it'll be good to see a lot of these young players. I am going to get the MLB. Never had the MLB channel this year. I'm so excited, so revved up, thanks to this podcast and talking to everybody out there. And I'm excited. So I'm going to get the MLB channel and I'm going to watch some of the local games you were talking about. Let's see. The season starts March 20th. And there's 2 games, one on the 20th and 21st. The Dodgers and the Padres are going to be playing in Korea. So that's pretty cool. And then every team will return home on the 24th and play 3 days of exhibition games in their stadium. So I guess they'll be playing like college teams or something like that. So
Yeah.
spring training's going to end in your stadium. We don't have the World Baseball Classic this year or anything else like that. I think that's good. The fans can get all revved up, go out, see the players. Of course, you see the stars, a few of them play, and maybe 4 innings, 5 innings, something like that. The pitchers will start getting stretched out. But then opening day, March 28th. That's so close. It's getting here. The Cubs, you guys play in Mesa, Arizona. We play down in Jupiter, Florida. But I got the opening day matchups. In 44 days, the Cardinals start at 4:10 in the afternoon against the Dodgers. I guess if you're going to have to play the Dodgers, just rip off that Band-Aid quick and play them and get out of there. And the Cubs don't have it any easier. They got to play the world champion Texas Rangers at 7:35. Vince, that's going to be a great day right there. I think it's a Thursday. I'm not sure, but anyway, that's March 28th for those 2 games. So, man. So anyway, that's it for Cardinal news and spring training and opening day stuff.
Well, let me ask you something about that has to do with Cardinal news. there's a pitcher out there who last year he was injured and he was rehabbing. He's unsigned. He's a former All-Star, and he's a local boy from Highland, Illinois. I'm surprised that the Cardinals haven't invited Jake or Odorizzi to camp.
I know they used to have interest in him. I'm not sure either. I'm not sure what the hangup is there. Is he a
I
lefty? I'm not. I'm not
I think
sure.
Odorizzi's a right-hander.
Is he a right-hander? Well,
Yeah.
I don't know why they haven't. That would be great. Give him a league minimum and have him come to spring training.
Yeah,
You almost need 7 starters now. I see a lot of teams loading up with some long relievers, and they kind of rotate them through to give the guys an extra day off here and there. So it seems like that's the new thing in baseball. Everybody follows the leader and what succeeds. Well, the Rangers last year had about 7 starters that people would get hurt. That guy go into the rotation. I don't know if he pitched anything like he used to. I'd love to have that guy on our team.
yeah. My family's all from Highland, and my mom graduated from Highland High School way back in 1958. But anyway, I have followed Odorizzi's career since he was in high school. I think he was a number 12 pick in like '08 or something like that. Uh, the Brewers picked him, and then I think he made it to the majors with the Royals, pitched with the Rays, Houston. I think he had a spot with the Twins too.
Thanks. So.
Never a stud, but a very solid number 2, number 3 starter that local guy.
Yeah,
Yes.
I like to hear that. That'd be a great story.
Well, in Cub news, there's not a whole lot going on, except we're all getting ready to go to Arizona. We are still there's still no Cody Bellinger, so there's the question up in the air: what are we going to do about center field? Well, center field is if we don't get Cody Bellinger, we'll probably just start Pete Crow Armstrong in the majors and see what he can do. We still have Michael Talkman on the team, who had a decent year last year, kind of tailed off at the end of the year, but there for a while he was carrying the top of the lineup, batting leadoff, and he was also breaking the hearts of Cardinal fans with home run grabs. Yeah, so
Jamal was at that game. Jamal talked about being
yeah.
at that game. Oh man.
So that's our options for center field if Bellinger does not sign. My real big concern is third base options, because right now our third base options are Nick Madrigal, who, without playing third base at all till last year, actually defensively handled the position really well. The problem is there's just no offense there. No pop in his bat. He's a contact hitter, and he reminds me of a middle infielder from the '70s. Very light hitting. He's going to hit you some singles, but that's about it. He's going to make contact, so you can do some hit and run. You can do some bunting with him. But that's just not really the game that you're looking for in these days, and specifically out of your third baseman. The other option we have at third base is Patrick Wisdom, who made up for a terrible offensive year by having an abysmal defensive year. It got to the point last year where Ross was only hitting him against certain left-handers that didn't throw hard. And I was surprised that they signed him for another year. But my main issue is he can't field, and we are a team predicated on stellar defense. And we pitched to contact. We've got the best infield in the majors with the 2 Gold Gloves up the middle. But if we got Patrick Wisdom at third base, that's rough. We got Nick Madrigal defensively. We're still really good, but he's not going to add anything offensively. So we do have Mike Shaw, who was our number 1 draft pick last year, and he is on the fast track. He hit well over 300 at 3 different levels last year, ending at AA. And he's, to me, if we don't sign Chapman, he actually has a shot at making the opening day roster as the at third. Um, so uh, that's our third base option. And there's been a lot of let me move my notes here. There's been a lot of discussion amongst Cub fans. We are the Cubs. We have all the money in the world. Go get Cody Bellinger. Go get Matt Chapman. Fill these holes. Throw money, money, money at him. Um, so you've got that camp. Then you've got the camp that says, okay, we do have holes right now, but we have Matt Shaw right on the verge. We have PCA right on the verge. We have all this young talent right on the verge. Would we want to sign a Matt Chapman to a 3 or 4 year contract and keep Mike Shaw down? Do we want to sign Cody Bellinger to a 5, 6 year contract and keep PCA down or whoever down? If he moves to first base, are we going to keep Owen Casey down? There's all these variables. So I know baseball fans, they think every year we want to win. We want to compete every year. We want to compete every year. And I get that. But I'm kind of falling into the camp that, okay, we're a pretty good team. For the short term, would it be good to have Chapman and Bellinger on the team for the short term? Yes. But that could hamstring us down the road because we'd be stuck with these contracts after a few years when they're on the downside. We've got this talent that we can't really play because we're kind of gridlocked as far as where we go. So I'm kind of in the camp that, okay, maybe we can win the division this year because it is a weak division. But if we don't, I would rather us be a little more patient for another year. Let the PCAs, the Mike Shaws, the Owen Casey's, the Cade Hortons of the world, let them percolate another year. And, of course, with PCA, he's going to be up this year. Let them percolate a little more. Maybe bring them up during the season where they can get some at bats and have some failures and some successes. And maybe our real window for serious competition would start next year. So I'm kind of falling into that camp. And when I get into my spotlight in a minute, I'm going to tell you why I've shifted to that camp. If we don't get Cody Bellinger or Matt Chapman, I don't think I'm going to be upset because I think in the long term, we're going to be better off.
Well, Vince, as a Cardinal fan, watching the Cubs do what they do, it's obvious you guys have a very strong minor league team. And a lot of times, the reason you sign a guy, it's just the timing of it. The guy's coming off, getting a little older. You can get him for a 1 year contract. I think of last year, Arizona, it was perfect. They got to Evan Longoria, and he was a veteran presence and he still was a very good player. And I don't know if he's going to be back with him this year, but that was a perfect pickup because they didn't have anybody at the time to fill that spot. And they weren't getting them for a long-term thing. And I'm with you. Last year, I always try to think of something positive. Last year was a terrible 71 and 91 season for us, but it was very valuable to see Jordan Walker and get Lynn up just enough, win our shortstop, a little taste of the big leagues. Looked like he was a little overpowered batting, but again, it takes a while to get acclimated to moving from AAA. He's hit every level he's been at, and it was great to get to see him play some games. We moved some players that weren't going to be here this year, and we got some prospects for him. So a lot of it's just timing. And I'm with you, Vince. I think the Cubs, it's in their best interest. They've got these gold chip guys that look like they're at they could be all these guys you have that you just mentioned, those three players could be future all-star players. And I would hate to see them have to learn a new position just because, maybe you panicked a little bit. Bellinger seemed like he was a perfect fit for Chicago, but just a year of seeing what these guys have. And I think the future is very bright for the Chicago Cubs in the next couple of years. That's
I hope so.
Cardinal talking anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, we could sign Bellinger Chapman and we would our Dakota prediction would go up probably 3 or 4 wins. Right now the Cardinals are favored to win the division according to Dakota with like 84.5 wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could push ahead of that, but I just don't know if it would be worth it for 1 year to make the playoffs and maybe a couple years, but to keep this young talent down, I just don't think that's a very good trade-off. So, and I'll get into that when I get to my spotlight. You know who else don't think that's a good idea?
I listen to this man any idea he has. Oh yeah, Jeremy Connor. That's who.
Jeremy Connor does not think that it would be a good idea to sign this veteran talent. Comes a time in every man's life when he needs some advice on relationships. You need to listen to the podcast DMDR, which stands for Dating, Marriage, Divorce, Remarriage, from my good friend Jeremy Connor, the Dr. Phil of the Boot Hill. You can find DMDR on Spotify or whatever platform you choose to listen to your podcast. Well, JJ, you were going to do a spotlight on
Johnny Keane.
Johnny Keane, and I'm going to do a spotlight on Jim Hendry. Excuse me. Would you like to go first, or
Sure,
go?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I picked Johnny Keane, and Valentine's Day is coming up, and this is my love letter to Johnny Keane. No, to all coaches that have worked their way up, like a Mike Schilt, worked his way up from shining shoes and taking care of the uniforms, going in, starting at the rookie league and working your way all the way up to the big leagues. And guys like that, you see them at first and third base, or a hitting coach of some sort. And the fans all know the big names, like, oh, there's Mark McGwire working with the hitters and stuff like that. But I think the backbone of baseball is these guys that went down in the minors, maybe got a taste of the big leagues, and have worked their butts off and worked all the way up to the big leagues. So that's why I'm spotlighting Johnny Keane here the day before Valentine's Day. And by the way, happy Valentine's Day, everybody out there. John Joseph Keane was born in 1911, and he passed away in 1967. He was born in St. Louis, Missouri. So he's a St. Louis boy. Johnny played in the majors. He never played in the majors. In 1930, he started playing in the Cardinal minor league system as a shortstop. In 1935, he suffered a head injury. Back then in 35, they didn't wear batting helmets. And he got hit, and he suffered a head injury and was in a coma for several weeks. I'm sure, I don't know if you've ever got hit with a baseball. We wear helmets now, but anytime you get hit with a ball, it's tough to get back in the box and facing that pitching. It's always in the back of your mind. So he started managing in 1938 for the Cardinals in the Class D level, which for us nowadays would be the rookie level. So he started all the way down in the rookie level in 1938 and earning the stripes. And he spent 17 years in the minors, managing every level of the minors and working his way up. And over those 17 years, his record, 17 years, that's a long time to do anything, was 1,357 wins and 1,166 losses, a 536 winning percentage. And he finally, in 1959, he gets called up to the majors as a third base coach for the St. Louis Cardinals. And then in 1961, so he's there for 2 years, and he is the coach they decide to take over as manager, he was replacing Sally Hemus. That was a name. I know Sally Hemus because my grandfather would talk about him all the time. So he became the manager right in the middle of the season in 1961. Now, the Cardinals were a young team at that time, and he had managed a lot of these guys coming up. This reminds me of Mike Schilt. He was down in the minors. He worked with these guys. He came up, and a lot of the players have talked about him being a great mentor to them, especially a young Bob Gibson, who was just coming into the league in those Johnny Keane years. He managed for 3.5 years in the Cardinal organization. and his record was 317 and 249. That's a great winning percentage right there. And David Haberstein wrote a book. And I tell you what, Vince, I don't read much. I read Baseball Digest, I read TV Guide. If there's a good article in Playboy, I will read that. But that's about it. That's the extent of my reading.
Articles?
They had a John Lennon one time. That was a very good article. But anyway, I don't do a lot of reading, but that 1964 by David Hammerstein is one of my favorite baseball books. And it just basically goes over how the Yankees were this dynasty since the Ruth era, and they were a veteran team, and they were all white guys. They were one of the last teams to integrate. And the Cardinals in the early 60s had Hispanic players and African American players, white players, veterans, young guys. The team was really, the stars were all the young players on the team, and Keane really connected with those young players. And anyway, especially, but him and Bob Gibson had a very good relationship. So if you get to a chance, read that 1964 book, and it talks a lot about Johnny Keane and the Cardinals and how baseball was changing at that time period. Because the Cardinals had a lot of speed, a lot of flair, and the Yankees, although they were great for a long time, they were starting to get a little long in the tooth at that time. Well, anyway, then came 1964, and the Cardinals by August they were a lot of players. They were out of the pennant race. A lot of they and Branch Rickey, who was with the Cardinals early in his career, had went to the Dodgers and the whole Jackie Robinson thing. Well, he was back with the Cardinals at this time, and he was telling Augie, "This team's out of it. You need to get rid of all these executives you got. They don't, you need to get some fresh ideas, fresh faces here on the team." And they got rid of about everybody. And then Johnny Keane got wind that they had been talking to Leo DeRocher, who was a coach with the Dodgers, is coming in and taking over as manager. And that really did not settle good with Keane. But on August 17th, the Cardinals are out of it. August 17th is when they got rid of all the senior executives with the Cardinals. And they said Keane was temporarily spared. But like I said, Leo DeRocher. Well, then, with 2 weeks left in the season, the Phillies had a huge lead, but they all of a sudden went on a 10-game losing streak. And the Cardinals got red hot. And with the last 4 days of the season, it was pretty much a toss-up between the Phillies, the Reds, and the Cardinals. And the Phillies had lost 10 games in a row. They just were choking. And anyway, we came on, won the game. And back then there was no playoffs. So we won the pennant on the last day of the season. We go to the World Series and we take the Yankees in 1964 in a 7-game series. Everybody's happy. The next day, the Cardinals are having a press conference, and a lot of the fans and everybody thought, oh, they're going to give Keane an extension. But before Augie could say anything, Keane handed in his resignation. He was mad. He said, no, I'm out of here. So he left. And you're thinking, oh my God, he's the World Series champion and he's leaving. And he ends up getting signed by the New York Yankees. So he goes from the team he beat, the team that won it, to the team he beat in the World Series. And Yogi Berra gets moved to a different position. And poor Yogi Berra, this happened to him all the time. I feel bad for Yogi. Seems like they always move. Yogi got the short end of the stick all the time. And I think Yogi Berra is one of the, although, he was always funny and I just think he was a great baseball mind, and he kind of got shortchanged a lot on that. So Keane takes over the Yankees, and he does not do very well. The Yankees are a veteran team, like I said, and Keane especially was working with the young guys. And his ways, when Vern Rapp was with the Cardinals, it just fell flat. I always mention Vern Rapp because I'd never seen anything bigger disaster. You guys thought this year was a bad year. Go back and check out the Vern Rapp year and fight with Auerbowski about his mustache and everything. It was sad. But it was kind of like that. He goes up to New York and they don't win. Jim Bouton wrote a book called Ball Four about behind the scenes in baseball, and he said that he believed that Johnny Keane was just overwhelmed. He was scared to death to make any big decisions that they would go wrong. So that was Jim Bouton's perspective on Keane. They went in 1965. They went 77 and 85, and that didn't set well in New York because they were used to winning every year. And then in 66, they went 4-16, and he got fired after the first, like right after the first month of the season. So Johnny Keane's out of a job. He won the World Series in 63, and he's out of a job in I'm sorry, 64, and he's out of a job in 66. In December of that year, he gets hired to be a scout for the California Angels, and he had a heart attack the next year in 67 and passed away. And a lot of people think it was from the stress of managing in New York. You know, the Cubs and the Cardinals, we have these organizations where our fans, for the most part, love our teams. Uh, you know, we always pull for them. If they're down, we're with them. We're going to go all the way. But in New York and some of these other cities, it's just, oh my gosh, it's so stressful. And the media is, it can be rough. And I just don't think Keane was made for that type of situation. So the reason I mentioned Johnny Keane was a guy who just, I remember him as a guy who went to the minors. He had a minor league career, didn't quite make it, but went down there, worked his butt off, came up, was a Cardinal manager, and got him to a World Series and one of our world championships. And I'll always thank him for that. And I just wish him and Augie could have communicated and he would have stuck around a while longer, because we did not hire Leo DeRocher. We ended up hiring Red Shandings, who stuck around all the way until like 76, I believe it was 77. So, and that's when we got Vern Rapp out of this. Back to the Vern Rapp portion of the show. So anyway, that was my spotlight. Johnny Keane. You might want to look him up and read those two books: 1964, David Havelstein, and Ball Four by Jim Bouton.
Yeah,
So
Ball Four is the classic.
that's a
Yeah,
classic right there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to spotlight Jim Hendry. Jim Hendry was a former GM for the Cubs, and he's a very fascinating character to me. He was born July 27th, 1955, and he graduated from Spring Hill College, where he majored in communications and journalism. That's what he thought his career would be. But he couldn't find a job in broadcasting, and so he took a job as a high school teacher and baseball coach in Miami, Florida. He did a great job, and he eventually got the job, the head, the manager, head coach, whatever they call it, college at Creighton University in 1983. And in the middle of the 84 season, well, excuse me, he was hired as a coach in 83. In the middle of the 84 season, he became the head coach at Creighton University. And in 1991, Creighton won the College World Series, and that kind of put Jim Hendry into the national spotlight as far as baseball is concerned. He was named the College National Coach of the Year. And then he left Creighton and became a special assistant to the Florida Marlins GM, Dave Dombrowski. And that's kind of where he cut his teeth. That's how he learned to be a GM. He also coached a little bit in the minor leagues in 93 and 94. But basically, he was that assistant GM during that time where the Marlins were, early 90s, just, I guess, establishing themselves as a major league organization. So he's eventually hired by the Cubs to be their GM in 2002. In late spring training 2002, he made his first deal. He dealt Julian Taveras, who was kind of a enigmatic guy for the Cubs. I think he pitched for the Cardinals too.
Uh-huh.
And a little-known minor leaguer named Dontrell Willis to the Florida Marlins for Matt Clement and Antonio Alfonseco. Matt Clement was a good pitcher. He had a couple good years with the Cubs. He was a very solid pitcher. But of course, Dontrell Willis went on to become Rookie of the Year and to win a Cy Young Award. So that kind of looked like he didn't do such a good job there. His first year as a GM in 2002, the Cubs were not a good team. They didn't contend. Their manager was Don Baylor, who I loved as a player, but I hated as a manager.
Oh.
And I always tell people when I talk about Don Baylor, I used to start the game, You have your leadoff batter, you have your second hitter, and then you have Sammy Sosa coming up. First batter would get a hit or a walk, and Baylor would bunt him over to second. They would walk Sosa, and whoever was batting fourth would hit into a double play. I must have saw that 5 to 10 times that season, and it drove me bananas because Baylor knew that if you score first, your chances of winning are like 60%. So he tried to manufacture run in the first inning, and you know, that's when Sammy was Sammy. But anyway, so after 2002, I digress a bit. He fired Don Baylor, and he got pretty aggressive in the off season. He got rid of Todd Hundley, who we had gotten after the 2001 season. Hundley struggled in the field and at the plate, and he struggled with fans, and um, he was becoming the least popular player in Chicago. And if you're saying big deal, Todd Hundley became the least popular player in Chicago. His father, Randy Hundley, is a god in Chicago, multi-time All-Star catcher for the Cubs, those great Cub teams of the 60s. And Randy Hundley would catch 155, 156 games a season. So to get rid of Todd Hundley was a big deal. He also had he needed to get rid of Hundley, but Hundley was so bad he couldn't swing a deal. Finally, he convinced Dan Evans, who was with the Dodgers, to take Hundley, and we would take Mark Grudzielanek and Eric Karros off of their hands. They were two aging veterans who were clearly on the downside of their career, but both became big contributors to the Cubs in 2003. So 2003 starts. There's not much expected out of the Cubs. In fact, in June, we lost our center fielder, Corey Patterson. And so Hendry sent prospect Bobby Hill and infielder Jose Hernandez to the Pirates. And we got Kenny Lofton to play center field to take the place of Corey Patterson. But the big acquisition, I think Lofton was great with the Cubs for that year, but then he went on to other pastures. But the big thing we received was third baseman Aramis Ramirez in that trade, who became the first perennial all-star third baseman that we've had since Ron Santo. So he made that swing in June of 2003. We picked up momentum. We had Pryor and Wood. Matt Clement had a great season. Young Carlos Zambrano. And we started surging, and we won the Central. And we had not won a postseason series since 2000, or since 1908. Ooh. And in the first round of the playoffs, we beat the mighty Atlanta Braves. And then we play the Florida Marlins. We were a much better team than the Marlins. And everybody knows what happens in 2003, so I'm not going to go over that again. But anyway, Jim Hendry, in just a few years, he had taken this team that was in disarray, and he had built them into a team that was 5 outs away from the World Series, and was doing a great job. So 2004 came along, and we, even though the disappointment of 2003 there, we had high expectations. We were picked by Sports Illustrated to win the World Series, and we actually got better in the offseason. We picked up Derek Lee from the Marlins. We picked up Michael Barrett from the A's. We signed free agents LaTroy Hawkins, Todd Walker, and we brought back Greg Maddux. So we thought, oh my gosh, we are going to win the World Series because we had this great team last year and we're even better talent-wise this year. Well, it didn't happen that way. We had injuries to key players like Pryor. Sammy Sosa was injured. Kerry Wood was injured. Joe Borowski, who was our closer, got injured. Alex Gonzalez was injured. So we had all these injuries going on in 2004. And then in July, on the trade deadline, Hendry made a huge splash when he traded and picked up all-star shortstop Nomar Garciaparra from Boston. So he makes this big trade, which was the right thing for a GM to do. The problem was Garciaparra, he injured his hamstring, I believe it was. no, his groin, and he missed all this time down the stretch. He was hitting for us when he got there, but he missed all this time down the stretch. And with 9 games left, we had a game and a half lead in the wild card. And then we faded, and we eventually lost the wild card by 3 games to the Houston Astros. And the offseason was kind of in 2004 a mess. Chip Carey and Steve Stone didn't come back because they were very critical of the way the Cubs played. And I get it to some degree. They were a very talented team, but they were a very beat up, injured team. But one of the other issues was at the end of the season, twice Sammy Sosa walked out on games. He wasn't starting. He had a little bit of an injury, nothing major, just like one of those daily things. And we're playing in Montreal with about week and a half, 2 weeks left in the season. And so we start someone else, we get to the point where we got a couple men on, we're down by 1 run, it's late in the game, gonna pitch in Sammy. Where's Sammy? Oh, he's not here. Sammy left. Okay. Then to top that off, final game of the season, the Cubs are out of it. Okay. Sammy shows up to the game and sees that he's not in the lineup for the final. So he leaves. Now, Sammy's story was, I stayed to the 7th inning. No, you didn't, because there's video surveillance of him leaving at 1 o'clock before the game even started. So Hendry goes from a GM who's built this team that's 5 outs to the World Series to a team that has completely collapsed. And he became kind of a scapegoat for what was going on. He went from the hero to the goat really quick. So 2006 was not a good season for the Cubs. We lost a ton of games, and in the offseason, we get rid of Dusty Baker, who we hired after we fired Baylor. So Baker's gone, and team lost, I think, 96 games that year. So we're starting to prepare for 2007. And so he hires Lou Piniella to manage. And Hendry gets back to work what he does. He signs Alfonso Soriano to an 8-year, $136 million contract. He re-ups Aramis Rivera for 5 more years for $73 million. He brings in Mark DeRosa from the Texas Rangers, I just loved Mark DeRosa, to a 3-year, $13 million deal. And we also bring in pitcher Ted Lilly, who was a very solid pitcher for the Blue Jays and for the Yankees. So he'd pitch in that tough American League East. We also signed Jason Marquis after his stint with the Cardinals to a 3-year. And we also bring in Cliff Floyd, who's one of the quality people in baseball, and he still works for the Cubs on the Marquee Network, doing some announcing. So we start spring training in 2007 with $300 million in new contracts, and it pays off. We win the division in 07 with an 84-76 record, which isn't great. The only acquisition we really needed to make in the middle of the season, we picked up Jason Kendall, former all-star catcher, and he fit in really nice. And then we played the Diamondbacks in the first round of the playoffs, and we got squashed. Got swept. So it's okay. So beginning of 2008 season, we signed our first big Japanese player, Kosuke Fukudome, who was really great for about 2 months, and then he was just wretched. We also brought in Rich Harden from the A's, who was a really good pitcher. And we won the division in 2008 again with 97 victories, the best in the National League. So in the first round of the playoffs, we play the Dodgers, and we completely choke and get swept again. So Hendry stuck around for a few more years with the Cubs for until 2011. That was during that time he signed Milton Bradley to 3 years, $30 million, and Milton Bradley finished the year suspended by the Cubs. Just a rotten, terrible human being who's in jail now for spousal abuse, where he should be. But he's kind of a garbage person, and Hendry should not have signed him. In today's world, your GM's not going to sign that guy. It's Trevor Bauer. You're not going to sign him. Back in those days, that's their personal life. Well, as long as it doesn't spill over onto the field, we're fine. So a different time. But that was kind of his last legacy, that Milton Bradley signing, stuck around till 2011. And then we brought in Theo and Jed, and Hendry left, and he went to the Yankees, where he still works kind of as a scout, doing different things for the Yankees. So he's been with the Yankees since he left the Cubs in 2011. But I like Jim Hendry. During his tenure, we were 749 and 748. He was a GM that I saw that was not afraid to take risk and try to make the team better. He had some successes. We didn't get to the World Series, but for a franchise who had struggled with just getting a sniff of the playoffs for so many years, he made going to the playoffs something that we would do. 2003, 2007, 2008. Yeah, there were some bad years in there, but he tried. He tried with the tools that he had to put together a team, and he was successful in some seasons, and other seasons were disastrous. So he's kind of a polarizing figure. His last legacy is still last two legacies. One of them is with the Cardinals. He was responsible for bringing in Wilson Contreras as a 16-year-old. It was under his leadership. He also drafted Javi Baez. So when people talk about, Theo and Jed built, these team, brought in all this minor league talent, kind of started with Henry, because he, Contreras and Baez was under his reign. But he's maligned. You have Cub fans who absolutely hate him. I, on the other hand, one of these guys, it's like, okay, compared to what we had, I'm okay with what he did. He kind of brought us to relevancy, and that was nice to be. I don't like getting swept out of the playoffs. I don't like losing a World Series chance with 5 outs left. But in retrospect, compared to the lean years I grew up with, I'll take it. And this, I'm going to circle back to the comment that I made about, being a team that just spends money. In today's world, I think Jim Hendry would be a lot more judicious with the free agency signs, with the people he brings in, would have done a lot more homework. But that homework wasn't available like it is today. There weren't the sabermetrics there are today. There wasn't all this background check you could do to figure out if this player's a fit for this team. And that's what I'm saying. Jim Hendry, his solution a lot of times was bring in the veterans, and it worked sometimes. But other times it was disastrous. And it kind of stunted our growth as an organization, because aside from Pryor, Zambrano, and Wood, we didn't have a whole lot of homegrown talent that was really making a splash until that crop started coming out in the late teens, with Baez, Contreras, Bryant, and that ilk. So I appreciate what he did. I think he's a little more maligned than what he should be. But that's Jim Hendry.
Well, that was a great report. I didn't know much about him at all. But bottom line is, if you enjoy the seasons, you enjoy the players they bring along, like the Super Bowl. We started out talking about the Super Bowl. It's great for Kansas City, and we're talking about dynasty, but I think of the San Francisco 49ers. They had a great year, and they're going to be known as a team that lost the Super Bowl. But as a fan, my only thing is, and we talked about this before too, if you can get to the last month of the season and you're within 5 games and you got a fighting chance, I think that's a good year. And like with all these players that general manager brought in, it made it entertaining and fun to watch that team, and a guy who takes a chance, I applaud that. It backfires sometimes, but I like somebody a lot. The Cardinals get a lot of negativity for we just kind of we don't take many chances. We're kind of a very conservative. We make conservative moves, and we do, and we do. So I admire a guy who says this is what we need. Let's go get it.
Yeah, I appreciated his tenure there. So, and he's a great interview too. You don't hear him interviewed anymore because he's not a GM, but boy, he was always a great interview. Had kind of a slow Southern drawl to him,
Oh
and
yeah.
kind of sounded like a country bumpkin. Yeah, gonna try to bring in another right-hander. We get someone on the mound that can get some out. I liked him. So, JJ, I am going to open up another of the minor league cards.
Oh, the minor league cards. Let's say, oh, they're ghosts. It's ghost cards.
What do
Hey,
you open?
well, I was gonna show you this first. I can't afford Yachty and Pujols and Stan the Man jerseys, so I get the next level down. I got a Bake McBride. Bake
Oh,
McBride. He signed
oh,
right. He signed right here. So I'll be working on a little thing for Bake McBride. I'm really proud of that.
did you
And
meet him?
yes, he was known. Mike Shannon used to call him the Callaway Kid, but he was Rookie of the Year, and he ended up going. And he was a nicest guy. What a nice fella. He ended up going to the Philadelphia Phillies when they were a powerhouse, and they
Won a
they
World
called him,
Series with the Phillies.
yeah, Shake and Bake McBride, and really good player. And I picked up some cards, but because we're getting to the cards section. But Vince, I got some regular cards. Like here he is with the Indians. Right there's a McBride. I always think of him with that beard.
Played with the Indians.
Near the end of his career, he did. But Cardinals and Phillies. But Vince, do you remember these cards? I'm gonna get them out of their little packs here. These cards, for people like me and Vince, will remember these. Do you remember these?
Hostess.
Hostess cakes. There was three.
Yes,
There was
you
three of
cut
them.
them out. I
Yeah,
do
yeah.
remember those.
So here's the other one right here. There he is, right there. That's how I remember him. He's wearing that 1976 bicentennial hat the Cardinals wore back then. So these are the Hostess cake cards right there. And of course, I ate my fair share of Hostess cakes to get these bad boys. But oh my gosh, I can't believe I found those. So anyway, I'm making a little tribute to Bake McBride as well. And that's I love doing that kind of stuff. But anyway, Bake McBride, a player we don't mention very much. And Vince, I wanted to show you this last week, but I didn't want to get carried away. I know it's baseball time, but I wanted to show you this. I got this. The holder's fantastic. Okay, it's a little batting helmet, Atlanta Braves, and I put two of the cards in there. Phil Niekro, and look, if you look right there, he signed it. Phil Niekro, Hall of Fame, a 97 right there. So how about that? The Phil Niekro bait helmet. And I think the holder is fantastic. Isn't it nice?
I think it's ironic that it's a helmet in there. You've got Phil Niekro, who is probably one of the few pitchers in baseball history you didn't need a helmet
No.
against.
Well, what happens is when you go to these things, people know me now and they say, hey, I got something. And I was looking at that and they threw it in. It's kind of threw it in on the end of the deal. So I got that.
That
And I
is
was like,
cool.
man, that's pretty darn cool. But I am opening up because we're going to get 2024s here real soon. So I got Series 1, 2023 with Gonzalez on there from the Seattle Mariners. So anyway, I'll be opening those. You want to open up your minor leaguers first?
Sure. And let's see if we've heard of any of these guys.
I'm going to say two of them. We'll have heard of two.
For the Vancouver Canadians, pitcher Adam Peterson.
No, I don't know Adam Peterson.
I got a card, the 1989 Pacific Coast League Tacoma Tigers. And let me see. Guess who is on the Tacoma Tigers 1989 on their checklist?
I have no idea.
First of all, I'll give you a hint. Oakland A's. So
Okay.
this is the 88 team on the 89 card.
Would it be Walt Weiss. Is he on
Walt
there?
Weiss is on this team.
Hey, Gallegos, Mike Gallego, Gallego, something like that. Is he on there? Or Todd Stoudemire?
Uh, no. Let me Jose Canseco,
Oh,
Mark McGuire, Walt Weiss, Lance Blankenship,
remember Lance?
um, Rich Bordy, who pitched for the Cubs, Dave Otto, who pitched for the Cubs, um, Bill Dolly, pitched for the Astros, Jim Corsi had a major league career, Donnie Hill. That's a minor league team there with like 8 guys who were
Major
MLB
leaguers.
players. 4 of them were all stars. It's
I'll be darned. Well, those
great.
days were good back then. That was the coming of something great right there.
For the Iowa Cubs, shortstop Dave Owen. Yes, he did make it to the majors, and I do remember him. So,
All right.
okay, this is a card for the 1989 American Association Nashville Sounds.
That's
Uh,
Cincinnati Reds minor league, isn't it?
I don't know. It doesn't say, but I'm trying. Joe Oliver, yeah. So that's Frank
That's
Lucchese. Uh, so Joe Oliver's the only one that, and Lucchese, who I know is a manager. Those are the only 2 that I've heard of from that team. All right. Pitcher for the Denver Zeppelins, Mike Kinner Kunamanamaga Kubija.
Oh, that guy. I remember it. No, I don't know him.
Uh, pitcher for the Albuquerque, or excuse me, outfielder for the Albuquerque Dukes, Jose Gonzalez.
A lot of Jose Gonzalez have been in the league.
Pitcher for the Las Vegas Stars, Pete Roberts.
I think they were the Padres minor league team, I think.
Pitcher for the Edmonton Trappers, Tim Burkham.
I like that name, the Edmonton Trappers.
Manager for the Calgary Cannons, Rich Morales.
No, don't know him.
And second baseman for the Vancouver Canadians, Keith Smith.
Keith Smith.
So one card that I know made it to the majors because Dave Owen played a little bit for the Cubs. So that's what I got.
Well, Vince, some of these guys, these came out spring of last year. So some of these guys are in different teams right now. And I tell you what, it takes me a while to learn the new rosters. Until you watch the first month of the season, it's nice to see the guys in their new uniforms. By the way, that's another thing. The Cardinals have new Nike and Fanatics made the new uniforms for the Cardinals this year, and Miles Michaelis said they look cheap. So I looked at the pictures. It just looks like they're ripoffs of the old uniforms. They still got the bird on the bat, but I don't know. They're already, some of the players are not liking it. I don't know if you remember, but there was a Red Sox uniform they tried to get the players to wear, and Chris Sale tore his up. Remember that?
Yeah.
We need Chris Sale to come to St. Louis, tear up this new jersey. Well, here's my guys from the 2023 Series 1. Tarasco Hernandez, a sideways card right there.
There you go.
Looks like he hit a foul ball or getting ready to get in the air. I like the side views. I'm telling you what, these cards look really nice. A Detroit Tiger, Romy Garcia. Honestly, do not know him. I do not like those jerseys at all. I like the old Detroit ones. Let's see. I got a Boston Red Sox here. Looks like he's wearing a City Connect. I like your City Connects, but this yellow one with Boston on the front, not a big fan. Nick Pivetta. There he is, throwing.
Yeah, that may have been the shirt that Chris Sale took the scissors to.
He may have. That's right. Oh, this the face of the Boston Red Sox now. If I had to pick an American League team, I always kind of liked Boston Red Sox because of Ted Williams. But Rafael Devers, probably the face of the Boston team right there. I hope he stays there his whole career. All these are sideways cards, I've noticed. Texas Ranger. I don't honestly, I don't know if I know this guy. Joe Barlow. I don't remember him.
Don't remember seeing him pitch last year. So
You know, Vince, one of the changing things in these cards too, you see a lot more beards and tattoos. I remember the 1970s, there was some long hair, but I didn't remember seeing that many beards and that many tattoos back in those days, which is fine. I'm just making a comment about tattoos and beards. Um, oh, Philadelphia Philly, Aaron Nola right there.
oh
He's returning to the team.
yeah.
This guy has been a guy. You talked about workhorses, guys that get out
Yeah.
there and work. He's one of those guys right there. Tell you what, he has really kept them in the top. As good as their lineup is, he's been a great pitcher for them. Uh, this is a guy I don't think I know. I like these orange jerseys though. Corey Lee for the Houston team right there. Do not know him. Atlanta Brave. Oh, a guy, he seems to get hurt a lot, but a fantastic pitcher, Max Fried, right
Yeah.
there. Sensational talent right there. They have these cards. Every team's got a card with their emblem on it, and it's kind of a sticker or a patch. And I got the Seattle one. It's got Julio Rodriguez, and it's the Seattle Mariner patch card. I got a few of these. And on the back, I don't know if they're worth anything, probably a quarter more than the other cards, but that's still kind of cool. I like that.
Nice.
A throwback card, they've been putting those in there. Carlos Correa, a guy who was on 3 different teams during his free agent run right there, but he's back with Minnesota. I can bet his teammates love that. Oh, thanks for coming back. We know we were your third choice. Uh, they have a thing called Stars of the MLB, and this is Lewis Roberts, who actually the Cardinals had a shot at getting, but we wouldn't pay the extra money. And
Yeah.
oh, that's another one we'd let go, and I'd love to have that guy. Can you imagine we'd have a Rosarina and Lewis Roberts out there in that outfield? Oh,
Oh,
oh
and
my.
Garcia.
Oh, and Garcia. Oh man. Well, anyway. Oh, this kid's a good one. Brandon Marsh of the Phillies, and he's wearing the old throwback Phillies ones from the 80s right there. It says
Yeah.
future star. Very good. I got 2 more here, or 3 more. Max Scherzer. And this is him with the New York Mets. Right there. He's with the
Had it last.
Rangers now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hall of Famer. Uh Cal Mitchell of the Pirates. And I tell you what, secretly, I would like to see the Pirates do good, be competitive. Their fan base deserves that.
Yeah.
They've got some young, talented players there. That Reynolds kid, I really like. And the final card in this is Tariq Scrubble from Detroit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know him? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice. And this year's gonna be fun seeing all these guys in new uniforms, and I'm excited. I'm excited for the new year, and that's my cards.
All right. Well, JJ, tomorrow's a big day.
Oh yeah,
Spring training starts, number one. Number two, it's Valentine's Day. Everybody take your sweetheart somewhere to eat or don't. Um, it's also Ash Wednesday for those of you who celebrate Ash Wednesday. Uh, it's just quite a busy day.
it's
So
gonna be a big one.
yeah,
Yeah,
I asked a friend of mine what they were doing tomorrow, thinking, oh, well, tomorrow's Valentine's Day. And he said, well, we're gonna go get ashed in the morning. And I thought, ashed? I'm not Catholic. Oh, it must be Ash Wednesday. Okay.
Ash
So that makes
Wednesday.
it a Fat Tuesday, which is good because I'm fat and it's Tuesday. So,
Yeah. Hey,
so anyway, well, JJ, thank you. Have a
thank
good
you.
week, and we
Take
will do
care.
this next week.
Take care.